Welcome, everybody. I appreciate y'all taking your time to be here with us. I know your all's time is very valuable. I tell you what we'll do. I'll give you a quick breakdown of the events tonight. We're going to start with a short summary of apologetics, what we learned from Paul last month, just to keep it fresh in your mind. And then we'll have a role play, which will be very entertaining, I'm sure. And then we'll spend the rest of the time with a report from our legislative liaison team. And they're going to let us know all the great stuff that they've been doing over the last several months, and all the efforts that have gone into working underneath the Golden Dome down there. But so Article 5 apologetics is simply defending a position through reasoning, clear thinking, and using engaging questions. We're not arguing, we're not debating, we're not lecturing anyone. The questions are the primary tool. And like, for example, instead of saying a runaway convention has never happened, perhaps we can ask, can you point to any historical example of a runaway state-driven convention? This actually, in the mind, makes you stop and pause and kind of search and think about it critically, and hopefully realize that claim is just unsupportable. It's getting people to take time to stop and critically think. So to use this method effectively, we must develop a solid understanding of Article 5 process, commissioning powers, how delegates are controlled, precedents in history, and basically the common opposition claims that we hear randomly from John Birch Society and some of those types of folks. So the success of Article 5 apologetics boils down to knowledge, practice, and questions. This method is not about winning debates. It's about guiding others to the truth at their own pace, and that's critical. We want them to get to the understanding that Convention of States is a wonderful thing that we need to do, but it needs to be at their own pace, using logic and respectful engagement. As we as grassroots volunteers master this approach, Convention of States has stronger credibility. We have better relationships. We're more confident as advocates, and we will have a more persuasive presence in the Capitol if we do this. So with that summary in mind, I'll go ahead and let John and Art kick us off with the role play.
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Audio. Hey, Art, did you get my email describing the scenario?
I did. I saw the sign above your booth here. It says term limits. What's that all about?
Wait a minute. What do you mean? That's not the scenario.
I'm walking
Don't
up to your
you're
booth.
not
I'm
going to
walking
get.
up to your booth.
Oh, well, I'll tell you what. Before we jump into it, let me just give everybody the scenario. This is a real live one that occurred at the state fair in Pueblo few months ago, and it was one of the ones that I've run into before, and it exacerbates me. And this particular one, I will have to admit that when you read that 2-page summary of apologetics and the do's and don'ts, I didn't really follow all the don'ts when I confronted this particular individual. And, Art, being the gentle giant that he is, I think is going to be a perfect foil for this. But this guy came up, and like Art, hey, what's this term limits about? I spent 20 minutes with this guy, probably early 30s. And during the course of the discussion, he was really he was asking, what's this all about? And it became pretty clear he admitted to being a registered Democrat. He appeared to be liberal, but not like leftist crazy. And as I talked to him more and more about, in particular, term limits, and also let's see, the balance, what he kept referring to it as balanced budget, fiscal restraints, knock off the spending. He wasn't quite as sure about the restricting the power and authority of the, scope of the federal government. But he got to the point where he was ready to go. He said, yeah, I think I want to sign this. He says, this appears to be, nonpartisan, et cetera. Okay. And he was getting ready to do the pad. And then he noticed one of our pieces of literature that showed all the people who endorse it, the famous politicians, the pundits, the media people, and all that. He noticed. And so and here come Art, get into character. I say, okay, here, this is really easy. Just use the iPad here and you can sign this, and really appreciate your support. And then, Art, you just noticed people like Sean Hannity and Mark Levin and so who else? Oh, yeah, House Speaker Mike Johnson, J.D. Vance, Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. They're all supporters. And what did you say? What do you think of that?
Well, I got to be honest with you. I like the thought what we talked about the last 10 minutes here, but I can't sign this with all these people in there. This JD Vance, he's just a puppet. All he does is exactly what Trump says, tells him to do. He's,
Hmm.
there's, Mark Levin, he's just a loudmouth. He thinks that the louder he talks, the more people are going to listen to him. It's just ridiculous. There's no way I can do this.
Uh, you know what? Well, first of all, I appreciate you being honest with you. I really do. Okay. But I just don't get it. I just don't get it. You just spent 20 minutes with me. I answered all your questions. And although you're not sure about everything we're advocating, you definitely are in support of the term limits for members of Congress and also, fiscal restraints. And suddenly you change your mind simply because people whom you don't like or despise endorse it as well. I don't get the logic. Can you explain that to me? I'm really frustrated by that.
Yeah, it's simple. They're puppets. It's a puppet show. And I'm not going to be part of that because I think that it may be saying some of the right things, but look who's endorsing it. It's ridiculous. I can't get behind that.
All right, let me try another question on you. If you're ready to buy a really nice vehicle, okay, your dream vehicle, you've wanted it for a very long time. Okay, it has all your desired features. But then you see an advertisement featuring a well known celebrity whom you have always despised serving as a salesman for the vehicle. Okay, in other words, he's pushing it on TV or on the internet. Will you not purchase that vehicle even though it's your dream vehicle just because that's the guy who's selling it?
Bless you.
I don't know. I guess you make a valid point. It is a vehicle that I probably have looked at quite a bit and am I think I'd like to, but I'm just going to have to hold my nose to do this. Now tell me, is this just going to happen here in Colorado?
No, it's in every state. We have activists in every state collecting these signatures. We have 19, actually de facto 20 states that have passed the resolution, got 14 to go. And we've been working this for over 10 years, and we're going to continue it. Um, I just encourage you. By the way, I ran into this down at the legislature when I was giving testimony about a year ago on the COS resolution. And I had a legislator say to me, I like the same two things. Okay. I like the term limits and the fiscal restraint. But you know what? I can't find any of the people that I normally go to, any of the groups or people I normally go to, to get their opinion that support this. And you know what I said to that particular legislator, because quite honestly, she was being very polite to us. She was listening to our argument. I said, you know what? You just exercised your own judgment and discernment, okay? Your own individually to assess the worth of the Convention of States. You took the time to seek out the information you needed to do so. Again, I don't understand the logic of why does your assessment become invalid or incorrect simply because those you do not happen to like have made the same assessment. I don't I don't get it. You're you as a legislator should be making your own assessment, your own judgment. You know, that's what it gets down to. So I ask you to trust your own instincts and forget about who else is endorsing it. You stupid son of a
I think
bitch.
maybe you've got a little bit of a persuasive argument here. At this point, I'm supposed to interject my pathetic, bumbling responses,
Bumbling, yes, you are. You take
and
direction well.
but
Academy Award.
anyway, I would probably have signed this, but I was talking to this nutcase the other day, some Rutledge or something to do with, I don't remember what this guy's name was, but anyway, I appreciate the time you spent with me. I'm going to have to reconsider this and take a look
Okay,
at it and at least
good.
go from
Here,
there.
take the brochure with you,
All
okay?
right, thank you.
And go online. Think about it. Um, you know, it's interesting. I did not have as much. That's not the way it turned out in Pueblo. Yeah, I really.
I was there, remember?
Yeah, I know
We
you were,
talked for
and
25 minutes after the guy left.
yeah, it was really funny because I think I really ended up doing one of the things you're not supposed to do, which is just embarrass the shit out of them. And because I just, I don't get it. Don't you think for yourself? Seriously, you got to think for yourself. I mean, before you make any major decisions in your life, I understand if you're going to go talk to your wife or maybe your best friend, but you're not going to go talk to whomever you watch on TV, right? So anyhow, that one really stuck with me. And thank you, Art, for playing the foil in that.
I gotta
I couldn't
say that
resist it because I'm going to read off my email to Art this morning. You are free to ad lib in your pathetic, bumbling responses in your role playing, of course. Cheers, John.
and I've been doing this long enough. I don't have enough bumbling to do. I can't get there. It's too far gone. But I do have to say that this apologetics, for whatever we call it, apologetics or some other term, it's good to practice your elevator speech. You've only got a short period of time as they're walking by our booth or as we're making our case that, you know, me included, if I'm talking about a Caterpillar engine, you've only got a short amount of time to capture my mindset and thinking because I've got other things to do. So if we do apply this and utilize it, it's to our benefit to complete the mission, and our mission is to sign as many and educate as many as possible. So I don't know. I hope you guys
And
have
I,
all gotten something out of the
yeah, and I
apologetics.
think one of the greatest things that has stuck with me for 40 years, and this comes from my marketing and sales days at sales conferences, if any of you have had that experience in your lives, and tracking where their eyes go as they go by the booth. Where do their eyes go? And if I catch them staring at a particular poster, man, I'm all over them. Hey, I see you staring at that poster. How come? Did term limits appeal to you? You know, and usually it is the term limits poster, but and once you're able to engage them, after that, it really is all the art of the set of questions that you ask. It really is. So,
Well,
so
and the thing
thank
about
you, Art. I'll go on stage with you any day.
Well, the thing about that is bringing people along at their own pace, right?
Mm.
We're not going to debate or argue with them. Well, I actually personally enjoy talking to the opposition just to understand their perspective, right? Get them to start talking more than we do. Understand their perspective, right? And then use logic, little critical thought, and a respectful engagement. You might slowly start to change their mind. And that's kind of where we're at, especially in Colorado, because it's just a math number here, right? It's just math. We've got to get Democrats on board if we're ever to pass here in Colorado. So with that segue, I'm going to introduce the legislative liaison team. I see Jim Oates on. Is Michael on?
Yeah, Michael's there.
Yeah,
There's Michael. Okay, Michael Forbes and John Grabowski. They are our legislative team, and I'm going to let Michael start, and then Jim, and then we'll let John wrap it up. So go ahead, Michael, kick it off.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. I'm excited to just kind of share with you some of the efforts that the legislative liaison team has performed over the last several months to engage legislatures and also trying to find a sponsor for the 34 ready legislation. Right now, we do not have a sponsor. We are still waiting to see if we can find one. So that's where we are generally at this point. But I want to share with you the journey that we've had over the last several months. First of all, I want to talk about our effort that we had with engaging with the governor's office in Denver. Because the 34 legislation is a law, it has to be signed by the governor. So it made sense to me for us to try and seek what is the governor's attitude towards the 34 ready legislation. Like if he decided, oh, there's no way I'm going to support it, it might have been a lost cause for us even to start off trying to get it, through the legislature if we knew he wasn't really going to endorse it. So that was the reason to start with the governor's office. Not only that, with him being the Democratic leader in the state, his influence probably could catch the attention of Democrats in the House and in the Senate. So that was another reason why we did that. So we started off with developing an executive letter back in June that was signed at the time by our state director, Laura, and then the 4 members on the legislative liaison team, Frank, myself, John, and Jim Oates. So we signed that letter, and it was basically a 1-pager that talked about what is the 34 ready legislation. And then we had a summary of it on the back of the letter. So it was a 2-page executive letter. So we went through the summer in July, especially trying to get into the front office of the governor. We went through his standard invite that you have on the public website, trying to establish that meeting. We were unsuccessful doing that. So we tried to email directly to some of his folks in the office of the governor's office. And so through those attempts, we were being persistent to try and find a way and actually see if we can get a meeting with him or someone on his staff. We were sure we could at least get someone on his staff. Well, around the time August rolled around, we said, well, let's go ahead and put a date on the calendar to just go down to the Capitol. And we put September 9th on the calendar. And well, through our getting ramped up and prepped for the meeting, Jim was very fortunate to be a fishing buddy of Paul Lundeen. Well, in July, Paul Lundeen has stepped down as a senator for District 9. And so he was not going to finish his last year. And so with him talking with Jim and Jim talking with Paul Lundeen about this meeting we had the fortunate opportunity that Paul Lundeen knew some of the key people in the governor's front office, namely as Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy and Legislative Affairs by the name of Miss Allie Kimmel. So Paul had sent an email to Allie Kimmel based on Jim's request, and she took his advice and said, I will schedule a meeting with these individuals coming here on September 9th. And that's how it got started. We then reached out to his to some of the scheduling POCs, and we got 30 minutes on the calendar with Allie Kimmel and one other person by the name of Jarrett Hughes that are on the governor's staff there. We had a 30-minute in-person meeting scheduled for September 9th. Myself, Frank, and Jim went to the Capitol. We prepared our own talking points. We met ahead of time, prepared our talking points of what we were going to share with Allie Kimmel and Jarrett Hughes. When we first met them, well, it was a welcoming atmosphere. They weren't there to push us away. They actually had a genuine interest in what an Article 5 convention was about. So we educated them basically on an Article 5 convention. We explained that we were not able to pass the application in the last 3 years, 22, 23, and 24, and that we were then taking a different approach with the 34 regular legislation or the Faithful Commissioners Act, which is something that could be passed in every state in order to send commissioners to the Article 5 convention. They had some questions for us, and some of them were just about what is the Article 5 process. We answered those questions. We gave them a few handouts, and it turned out that they were very receptive to that information. We didn't give them too much, just enough that they could then communicate that to the government. They had a couple of questions for us that were a due out, and we got back with them like the very next day. But we walked away with a very successful media engagement, and I was pleasantly surprised at just their level of response and interest in the event. But what that did is that allowed us to press forward with trying to use the governor's office as maybe a talking point with legislatures. Now, what happened is it took about 3 or 4 weeks for Allie Kimmel to eventually get around talking to the governor about what they received from us. I was able to get her phone number, and I texted her a couple of times. And in early October, she and I finally had a conversation on the phone. And what she explained to me is that she briefed the governor on Article 5 convention. He understood what it was about. He then understood what the 34 legislation was all about, the Faithful Commissioners Act. And his general response is that he was open-minded to the legislation. And I found that response to be a good response. It allowed us to then know and understand that he is informed on an Article 5 convention, so that when he hears about it again, it's not unfamiliar to him. That became a very strong talking point that I know I use later on to talk with legislatures. Now, there was one setback I had in my approach that I wanted to take this fall when I was reaching out to legislatures, and that is when before Rose Pugliese resigned, I was on her calendar to talk about this whole Article 5 convention and ready 34 legislation around September 22nd. Well, a week before that meeting, I already had scheduled with her. She resigned because I was going to use her as a minority leader in the House to start sharing this information with her team. That way we can get it out to more legislatures that way through the minority leadership rather than trying to go to each one of them individually. Well, what we had to find out is that we had to kind of take a step back and see, well, who was going to be the new minority leader? Fortunately, the new minority leader for the House is Representative Jarvis Caldwell. Now, when I found that out, I was like, well, I was very pleased because he and I actually had several hours of conversations about an Article 5 convention long before his primary election in 2024. He and I sat down for an hour and a half, and then he even invited me on his own podcast called Engage the Rockets. And then we bumped into him during his new legislature orientation, that one day that John and I were at the Capitol. But he was very enthusiastic about it, very supportive of it. So I used that experience. And so I started contacting him after I found out that he replaced Rose Pugliese, trying to get on his calendar for the same reason, to use his office and position to then communicate the idea of an Article 5 Faithful Commissioners Act to the rest of his team. So going through the leadership to the House was one way we tried to do that. Now, here's what ended up happening is I ended up spending several weeks trying to get on Jarvis's calendar. He did write me back one time saying, hey, Mike, I want to talk to you about it. I'm busy at this point, but just keep reaching out to my team. So we ended up engaging like his chief of staff, Mike McMacken, his deputy chief of staff, Kimberly Hansen, and some of the other people on his internal team. And they were new folks from Rose's team. So we had to introduce ourselves to them. So it was a little bit of persistency trying to get on his calendar, and then eventually happened. But before I got on his calendar, I was able to break through and actually talk with my new House Representative, Ayla Flanell, who replaced Rose in House District 14. Then I was able to get on Senator Wilson's calendar, Senate District 9, who replaced Paul Lundeen. And I got on both of their calendars, had one-on-one discussions with them a couple of times, and seeking out sponsorship for the 34 ready legislation, especially in the Senate, because I think that's where we would like to have it if we could. When I talked to Senator Wilson for an hour and 45 minutes, she's very receptive to it. She had some detailed questions. I mean, shoot, she gave me an hour and 45 minutes of her time, and that was wonderful. She was already, this was like in mid-November when I talked to her. She was already full with like the 5 bills she was authorized to have, but she only had to have 3 of her bills due December 1st for those to then be looked at by legislative legal services to craft the bills so they can then be ready for the first day of the session, January 14th. So all legislatures are allowed at least 3 of their 5 bills due by December 1st. So I learned that. That's one thing I did learn. It's like, okay, well, we're still in that window to try and find a sponsor. She's still undecided on whether or not she'll sponsor with her 2 remaining bills, but it's still possible she could be a sponsor. When I went to Ava Flanell, she already had 5 bills that she wanted to introduce related to affordability and crime. Now, she was able to listen to me a little bit more at her town hall on, it was around November 15th, and she's in support of a Article 5, Faithful Commissioners Act. So the education has been successful with those legislators that I had to kind of pick up as I'm one of their constituents. And then finally, in early December 2nd, I was able to get a one-on-one appointment with the Deputy Chief Staff, Kimberly Hansen, and the Policy Director for the House Minority Team by the name of Carson Capps that worked directly for Jarvis Caldwell. I was receptive to at least talk to them. I didn't have to talk to Jarvis in person, but he knew we were coming. So myself, Jim, and Frank all met at the Capitol, sat down with the House Minority Team, those 2 individuals, and we gave them an Article 5 convention overview, talked about the 34 ready legislation, explained how we were still looking for a sponsor, even though we had a possibility in the Senate, maybe Senator Daugherty being the Democrat that could co-sponsor it, maybe with the Republican, but we had nothing definitive yet. So we were still trying to push this idea of seeking an Article 5 Faithful Commissioner Act sponsor. And so we found out that Jarvis Caldwell already had his 5 bills full. But his team, there were Kimberly and Carson, they offered up the idea of communicating it to the rest of the Republican caucus. So that's 21 other House representatives outside Jarvis. Now, that was on December 2nd. And then they gave us some feedback on other Democrats that we could possibly engage with to see if they would co-sponsor the actual 34 ready legislation. So they took our list of the legislators we had, they marked them like these are some people she's probably looked at. And then we talked about the Opportunity Caucus. The Opportunity Caucus is a group of Democratic senators and representatives that might be sort of along the lines as moderate Democrats. In other words, they share some of the same concerns about affordability and jobs and some things that are of interest to most Republicans. Sort of in the middle between. So we took that advice and looked them up, and there's about 15 of them that are in the Opportunity Caucus. Crosswalked that with a list that the Republican caucus gave us to recommend that we look at. And so it was about a list of maybe 20 Democrats between the House and the Senate together that we could reach out to and educate them on the 34 ready legislation. And so I immediately reached out to 4 of them, Senator Ball, Representative Jackie Phillips, Representative Espinoza, and then Representative Michael Carter. 3 of those 4 responded back to me. I gave them a copy of the executive letter we gave to the governor, explained to him that we're still looking for sponsorship, but more importantly, I just wanted to be informed of what we're doing. All 3 of them said, well, they're full with their 5 bills, but they appreciated the information. More specifically, Jackie Phillips, her representative aide, wanted more information that she could take back to Phillips. And so I actually had a 30-minute phone call with her today on that and gave her more information, answered some questions about 34 rate legislation. She didn't even know the Article 5 convention was something that was even in the Constitution. So she was actually very interested in that and very educated on it. What I'm trying to share with you here is that some of the initial responses that I've had personally from some of the Democrats has been, I would say, pleasant. They're not like strong supporters of it outright, but it's pleasant. It was professional. And they've been at least informed of it, the 34 rate legislation. What is an Article 5 convention? Because one of the things we're trying to do is reduce that education gap that exists right now in an Article 5 convention in the state legislature. That's part of the journey that we're on. And my gosh, it is a long journey too. It's a marathon. We're not going to be going on a sprint with this. So, some of those engagements with the Democrats, I think, has been somewhat successful. And I want to share with you that I think we still have a way forward here. We don't know if we're going to have a sponsor yet. Don't know yet. It's still possible. I'm hoping to find out something from the Republican caucus later this week if they have any other potential sponsors. As of last Thursday, when I talked to Kimberly Hanson, that's Jarvis Caldwell's deputy chief of staff, she said they're still reaching out to the team. So this is as 5 days ago. So it's still possible. They're not shutting us off. I think they're giving us their utmost consideration. I just think it's a matter of who has room to sponsor it and where their priorities are, what their constituents really want them to have. So, we got to be mixed in there somewhere, but there is support for it. It's just a matter of somebody taking the time to be a champion for it. Still possible in the Senate as well. We'll just see what happens. I mean, God has his hand in this whole process, and we'll see how that continues. Now, I want to kind of share something else with everyone here in this journey that I've been on, and that is a part of the education outside legislatures. Like, for example, on October 23rd, I went to the El Paso County GOP Lunch and Learn here in Colorado Springs, led by Ken Davis. He's the chair of the El Paso GOP, who's also, by the way, he's a local sponsor and leader for the Patriot Academy here in the state of Colorado.
That's
so
right.
He has a very strong connection with Rick Green, who's on the National Patriot Academy level. He's done a lot of good things for the state in that regards, and now he's a local chair for the GOP. He's a strong supporter of an Article 5 convention. And so he's agreed to allow me to present an Article 5 overview at their next Lunch and Learn on January 22nd. And so that's a good thing. I'm on their schedule. I've confirmed it. That's their next Lunch and Learn. And so on January 22nd, I'm going to provide an Article 5 overview. It's in person at one of the local golf courses here in Colorado Springs. Frank, I sent you the information, and you can come if you want, and anybody else that wants to come. So I will provide an overview. They're going to give me about maybe 40, 45 minutes of their time. So I think it's a very good opportunity to conduct an education to a larger group on the GOP side. Now, here's another interesting thing that came up when I was at the Lunch and Learn on 23 October as well. There was another organization by the name of Russ Cotton. I don't know if that name sounds familiar to any of the veterans. He used to help out the veterans team here for the Convention of States. He is now working with the Association of Mature American Citizens, AMAC, for Congressional District number 5. He's the leader for Congressional District number 5. He was inviting me to present an Article 5 overview at one of their state meetings. And so I was like, sure, I'd be happy to do that. Now, he explained to me that typically on the low end, they probably have about 70 people at one of their statewide meetings like this. And on the upper end is about 200. Well, that's a big group, no matter how you slice it. I think that's a good audience. So at one point was scheduled to do it here today on December 15th, but it got kicked to January 13th. But now I finally have it locked in for January 20th. So they have a draft copy of a presentation that I will offer up for them. It's going to be on a Zoom meeting or some other virtual connection, like we're doing right now on an evening like this. And so that slide deck I gave to them is a read ahead. They want to talk with me about it just with their leadership like a week before the main presentation, just to make sure that it meets the goals and the purpose of their meeting and that, it's held professionally. They want to make sure I'm not going to embarrass them or insult anybody, I would imagine, during one of those meetings. So that's a screening meeting before January 20th. But that's a good opportunity to reach out to a second group, some other lobbyist group, some other functional group that would support an Article 5 convention. I like the idea of doing that to more groups and more presentations that we could possibly use to then support us as we move forward. Just give me a minute. I'll answer questions at the end of this, but let me wrap this up. If we do not, this is sort of my last point here. If we do not get a sponsor for the 34 ready legislation, the contingency that I have in mind is for us to engage at least the leadership on the majority side in both the Senate and the House. Actually going to like Senator Coleman, who's the president of the Senate, and trying to get on his calendar and just provide an overview of an Article 5 convention using the idea of what we did with the governor's office as a way to kind of get our foot in the door. Do the same thing on the majority side of the House and see if they'll just listen. Provide as much education to as many people as we can. We really need to probably do more of that on the Democratic side. We are having some success, but I think we need to take it a step further. And then if there's other opportunities that come up from other groups in the state, like after my presentation at GOP, El Paso County or AMAC, maybe there might be invitations to provide presentations and overviews at other events. And so I think that's going to be the contingency if we do not get a sponsor. Now, if we do get a sponsor, well, I want to tell you what my main effort is to get ready for testimony and get that information out to everybody on how we want to do that. And that could be one of our main events for the next legislative session. Well, that's about 20 minutes. That's what I was estimating for this overview discussion. I'll be glad to answer questions or give it over to somebody else.
Frank, this is not question, it's comment. Let's see, Mike, you're coming up on 3 years, right?
About 3 years in February, yeah.
Let's see, I'm 5 years, coming up on 5 years. For all of you, especially those not as familiar with everything that we do, anybody that's new, do you realize the moving pieces when you're dealing with a legislature? The moving pieces, all the stuff that you have to know, not only about them, but processes. What's the legislative calendar? How do the bills come together? Who are the right leadership members that you should be influencing? And if you can't get them, who are the chief of staff? Who's the legislative aides? An extraordinary amount. And guess what? Things keep changing. You have elections, people come, people go. You get people that resign. You get people that get thrown the hell out of the legislature. Those are one of my most favorite things to watch. But in the 3 years that Michael's been doing this, I mean, it's just extraordinary how far he's come. And everything that he's doing now, I was doing, when for the 3-4 years where I was leading the effort. And just the progress made with getting in to see the governor's staff and the brand new House Minority Leader, Jarvis Caldwell, who, and everybody just keep this confidential, but in 2024, we were instrumental in helping get him elected as private citizens, okay, not on behalf of COS. But look how that paid off a year and a half later, okay? And that's what it takes. And, Michael has just done such a great job. I remember in his first year talking to Laura Niemeister about, hey, how's Mike doing? And I said, Laura, you know what? I'm not used to this because most volunteers, I'm trying to drag them along. And Michael, I'm just trying to stay the hell out of his way because he just knew what to do and he did a very good job with it. And so he's really to be commended. And you know, Jim has jumped in this year in particular, Jim Oates. And I have to laugh about the story about him being a fishing buddy of Paul and Dean. I mean, if you want to know how this stuff happens, divine intervention, that's an example.
Yeah.
But the other, and I'm going to make this other comment because I think it's really important. I was really pleased to hear because Michael's very involved in the grassroots. He's out there at the events and activities, creating his own. And the two that he came up with most recently, strategically, I can't tell you how important it is. El Paso County, I don't know how many of you know it, that is the most populous county in this state. Michael happens to live there. Again, divine intervention. He's in the middle of it. And I think El Paso County, which used to be solidly Republican, has now become emblematic of the battleground in our country. It's the fight for the soul of the electorate. I mean, truly, what do we want to be as Americans? What do we want to try to advance? And I think the battle going on down in El Paso is absolutely prime example of that. And the fact that he's connected to that and going and making presentation to him is strategically very important to our state. And then AMAC, which I've known about for some years, about 10 years, it's kind of the answer to the highly liberal AARP. But you know, the importance can be explained in this question. Which voter age group in this state has the consistently highest turnout rate? Age 55 plus, consistently the highest turnout rate. Us old people vote. And going out and talking to this kind of an organization that has grown considerably in the last 10 years, again, very strategic because they know about it. They're going to be asking candidates, hey, what do you think of this? You know, when they happen to see them at town hall. So I give so much credit to Michael for where this has been brought. And Jim has been right there along with us this year. I've really appreciated his addition to the team.
Well, let's have Jim share his thoughts on
Sure.
on everything
Brent,
going on.
Let's see if my audio is working. Okay, looks like it's on now. So we really had a very, very productive meeting at the Capitol, several. And I think most importantly, we have decided as a legislative team to get our district captains on board to identify members of Democratic districts where they have signers and get some signers of the petition to go to their offices and basically educate them about the COS Article 5 resolution process. If we get Democrats educated to the process and we get a Democratic sponsor, we have a chance of basically getting 34 ready into the chambers. It's not going to happen with a Republican sponsor. It just isn't going to happen. So I think we identified a mechanism, and the mechanism is to get Frank with the district captains to identify members of a constituency in a Democratic stronghold. We have Lukens and Martinez. Those districts are prime for getting people to the Capitol to speak with Lukens and Martinez to possibly get them to be sponsors. If we get that done, we have a chance of moving 34 ready ahead. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. And our process this year as a legislative team is education. We want to get the word out to Democrats, to Republicans in a nonpartisan format that this is something that Colorado needs for proper governance. Without proper governance in the state of Colorado, if a convention of states is called, Colorado will be left outside, looking inside, wondering, well, how do we appoint commissioners? How do we penalize commissioners that step out of the box? We want to prepare Colorado for a convention of states. I personally think a convention of states will happen before we get Colorado on 34 ready. But that's optimistic, and I'm an optimist. So, any questions?
This is Wayne on a landline phone. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
What were the two counties? You mentioned the names. What are the counties where those people are?
I don't have the districts listed, but we can provide that for you.
I can answer it if you'd like.
Please.
Okay, Lukens, right? Was that one of them?
Yes.
Okay, Eagle, Moffett, Rio Blanco, and Route. That's District 26.
And Martinez?
Martinez is 62. Alamosa, Conejos, Castilla, Huerfano, Mineral, Pueblo, Rio Grande, part of Pueblo, Rio Grande, and South.
John, we're losing you. Can you speak to the mic?
I'm sorry. I keep forgetting that about this damn Martinez, Alamosa, Conejos, Castilla, Huerfano, Mineral, Pueblo, Rio Grande, and Saguache.
I think that Chris Richardson, House 56 in Elizabeth, Colorado, has elements of a couple of those counties. He's on the far east for me in House District 56 up here in Brighton. So I'll try and get back with Frank Vaughn. So if he knows the two people that you're talking about, the 62 is nobody I really have contact with, but maybe with Chris Richardson, I may be able to get some contact. I'll be quiet again.
Okay.
John,
right.
you want to?
The only other thing that I wanted to add is that we're trying to work with Senator Ball and Weissman to do a similar process, to get them educated, to bring them up to speed, and potentially propose in the Senate a 34 ready resolution. So we'll see, how that happens. But our emphasis is educating legislators on the Democratic side of the aisle. Let's get that done. If we get that done and we get their support, it'll fly.
John, you want to wrap up with? Go ahead.
Yeah, that was Frank. I recognize your voice. Frank, I am listening to Protect Kids Colorado on Zoom at this time. Can you send me the counties of the individual that is speaking that has eastern places that Chris Richardson might be able to help? And I will contact and try and get him if it's appropriate.
We'll get it taken care of. John,
let's do that offline.
We've got a little bit of time left here. Let's make sure that we're productive and get through what we wanted to accomplish.
Okay.
John, you want to give us a little bit of strategic on what's going to happen in 2026 legislatively?
Yeah. Guys, this is really, it's connected to everything we're doing, but it's the long game here in the state of Colorado is flipping House seats. Okay. It's 43 to 22. You need 12 House seats flipped in order to gain control of the House. Okay. And I believe that COS can firmly play a role in that without crossing our line. We don't endorse candidates. We don't give them money or anything like that. As private citizens, we can certainly work on people's campaigns. We can give them money and all of that. But in 2026, I assure you, it is going to be a bloody battle. There are 12 to 15 House districts, which I have on a list in front of me, and I've been working this for about 4 months, where the Democrat incumbent is considered vulnerable and that the district is considered competitive. The Democrat House majority leadership has already admitted, and I don't think Scott Bottoms will mind me telling you this because it was the source of my information, already admitted to Scott Bottoms that not only are they going to come after him, but they already realize they're going to lose seats next year. I mean, there's a lot of people in Colorado starting to realize what's been done over the last 5-6 years by the radical, fascist one-party state Democrats. And here's my proposition. I really honestly believe that one of the ways that we can utilize what we do anyhow as Convention of States, which is grassroots, which is educating the public and recruiting them into signing our petitions. We can combine that with, which I expect to have.
John, you got to face the.
Yeah, when no later than after the first of the year, 12 to 15 House districts where we believe there's the greatest probability of flipping the seat. And my proposition is we're going to do what we normally do. There will be challengers to those incumbent Democrats. We will send them our survey, okay, our COS survey that we send to any candidate. And then we're able to share that information with the people, the constituents within that district. We already have people who have signed the petition within that district. Remember, we don't endorse candidates, but we educate the hell out of our people who live in those districts about the candidates, okay? Who supports us, who does not. And then it tips people off, and it's their decision, right? But they can decide, hey, I want to campaign for that candidate. I want to contribute to them, etc. And I believe firmly that next year, the driving force behind our grassroots activities, where do we hold events and activities? Okay, ought to be in those competitive districts. Why? Because if seats flip and the challengers win, they know about COS. They can consider it as a campaign platform. Okay. And we become much, much more visible to these people as they go into the state legislature. So, that's the basic proposition. I'm working on it. It's lots of data, lots of different sources. I am guardedly optimistic that I think the Republicans might be able to do half of it. They need 12. If they get 6, 7, or 8, man, it's going to be a different Colorado, at least politically. Okay. And interestingly enough, the Colorado COS intern, Lyle Knitzer, I think that, or Knitzer, is a sophomore, CU Pueblo. He is assisting us with the data gathering and assessment of the House districts. And that has been not only a really great use of that resource, it's a tremendous help to us. So you'll see more. But I want you to know the priority in January, February, March is going to be what Michael's doing, okay, and into April. And then the primary races will heat up starting early May, and then our focus will shift to how do we play out in those House districts. I hope that makes sense to you. Questions or comments?
Yeah, John, I want to talk real quickly about Surge Day. Are we having a Surge Day in about 3 weeks?
So,
Dr.
so
Frank,
here,
he's the state director.
yeah, so here's what's going to happen with that is if we do get an individual to carry our 34 ready legislation, we'll have a surge day before the committee hearing. Okay, so that's going to be in loose mud right now. We anticipate perhaps in April, if we do get somebody to sponsor this, and we will time it for the committee hearing. And what we'll do is we'll ask all the grassroots volunteers to surge the Capitol and to engage with their senator, engage with their representative, or at least engage with the aide, okay, and let them know that they should support this piece of legislation. So, big picture, we've got a couple of minutes left here. If you haven't noticed, the theme is education, right? We want to educate the grassroots volunteers, right? So that you can advocate on behalf of COS. We want to educate the folks that are under the golden dome. Okay, as you heard just a little bit ago, we've got an aide that doesn't even know that Article 5 exists. That the states can actually call. So we got a lot of educating to do, but with the apologetics theme, they've got to learn at their own pace, right? We've got to be able to have a conversation with these people. It's time consuming, it's laborious, but it's a requirement. We've got to do the hard work on the ground, right? We've got to keep collecting petitions. We've got to keep educating. And if you haven't noticed, we've also, within our strategy, we want to engage with like-minded organizations, okay, to grow our message quickly. That's where we're talking with AMAC, right? So if anybody has any ideas whatsoever, please reach out. Let us know. These meetings, the grassroots events, once a month. This is all about education. We're going to educate, and we're also going to let you know strategically where we are in the engagement in the legislature. So with that said, I don't want to, I want to respect your all's time. We said it would take an hour, but if we can answer any questions or anybody has burning issues that they want to get out there, please we'll throw it out to you.
Frank, real quick, starting in 2026, I will convert my third Sunday's meeting to inviting all the people that I can contact in about 28 different House districts in the Northeast corridor that I have been in contact with, now for almost 8 years. 7.5 years. I joined in 2018. So I've spoken in Larimer County, I've spoken in Weld County, I've spoken in Adams County, I've now spoken in Elizabeth, which has much of Chris Richardson's area of the eastern states. So I will be inviting anybody that's in this area to be a speaker that we like. I can support in a PKC meeting anybody I like, so I can do it in about 28 different House districts. Thank you, Frank.
That would be awesome. And as grassroots volunteers, it's all about civic engagement. Okay, I would encourage you guys to keep your ear to the ground. They're starting to have gubernatorial forums, okay, and events. I would encourage you to attend those. Talk about convention of states. Get our voice out there. Get this movement, just rolling downhill. So. Any other questions? If not, we'll go ahead and end it for tonight.
I just got a quick one.
Yes, sir.
Michael, was that meeting on the 20th? Is that a Zoom meeting or is that a in person?
The meeting on January 20th with IMAC will be a virtual meeting. I think it's on Zoom, but it'll be some sort of a virtual connection.
Oh, okay.
Now, I don't know how they allow others to come in that are not a part of AMAC. I can ask that question if other folks from our team want to attend. I'll ask that question and see what they say. But I believe it's going to be 6 p.m. on January 20th. That evening, it's a Tuesday evening, okay? And the way they explained it to me, the first 15 minutes is going to be like some of their administrative overview and some other things they need to do. And the other 45 minutes will be given to me for a presentation, questions, and answers.
All right.
All right. Well, with that, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy Hanukkah, and spend some time with your families. Recharge your batteries, because it's going to be a busy one in 2026. So thank you all for showing up.